Well, the eclipse was fun, but time to go home, everybody. Also, everybody's getting off from work right now. It's 5:02. Something I've noticed that's a really big difference between my generation and then the generations younger than me and the generations, my age and older, right? So there's like this divide, okay? And these kids, I can't even imagine the world they grew up in. Like, internet at their fingertips at a time when it was just unhinged and uncensored, and it still is, and just being exposed to all this craziness all the time. But what I've noticed is how antisocial a lot of the kids are these days because they were never taught, like, how to interact with people in the real world. Like, they just always were distracted on their phone. And they didn't learn, like, very basic social skills, right? Sorry, I keep being distracted. I'm trying to roll a joint here. But, I went into a mall today, and that was kind of a unique experience because a lot of malls are dead, and but today it was the eclipse, so everybody was out and doing stuff. The eclipse had just happened, so the watch parties were over, and there were a few people hanging out in the mall, which was pretty cool. Because I haven't been to a mall, like, legitimately since I was probably, like, 14 or 15, because they all, like, started to die out, and it became just, like, this abandoned place. It's like, yeah, I would go to the mall, I would physically be in the mall, but it's like I would be the only person in the whole, like, food court, or the only person in the whole JCPenney or whatever, except for the employees, right? And so I went in today to this mall, and there was a bunch of kids there that were a little bit younger than me, like maybe 19 years old. I'm 26, and these kids are like 19, 20s, and they, like, they think of the world in a very simple, black and white, yes and no way, and they don't understand a lot of nuance. So it's like if you do anything that they think is wrong or out of the ordinary, like if you're walking on the left side because they're on your right side, instead of just staying on the right side, they'll be like this weird, like, them trying to get on the correct side to walk on, because that's like technically the correct side, and things can only be right or wrong, and God forbid they're in the wrong, so they're gonna make a big deal and get in your way trying to like cross over and stuff. It's just like they gotta make like snide comments about everything, like, did you see that guy, why is that guy doing it, like every single thing is like such a big like concern, and like because it's like novel, I guess, like that they'd have never really interacted with the real world before. So and like they're kind of like the younger kids in a way, that they just find everything really funny, even stuff that's just like normal, mundane stuff. Like I went to a college for a delivery. Actually, I delivered from the mall to the college, so it was kind of a cool experience. But anyways, I climbed the stairs instead of taking the elevator, because it was only like 4 flights or something. It was only, they were on the 4th floor. So anyways, I just walked up the stairs instead of going up the elevator, and these kids were on like the 2nd floor, and they were laughing at me because I was going up past the 2nd floor and I didn't take the elevator, and they were like, I guess you didn't see we have an elevator. And like, I don't know, like when I was their age, if the college or the place had less than 10 stories, you have to take the stairs unless you're disabled. And I know that's not like common. I know that's probably not a thing that is like in New York or something. I don't know. But like, that was what we always did. Like if you were in a 2-story building, like my high school, we were you had to climb a hill, and then you had to climb a flight of stairs, and then you had to climb another hill, and then you had to climb another flight of stairs, and then you would be at the school, and you would have to climb a flight of stairs to get to your classes inside, and there was an elevator in there for the disabled kids, and only they were allowed to use it. We had to take the stairs. But kids these days are all entitled, and they're like, well, I'm gonna take the elevator, I guess. I don't know, like, just for it to be a college and them to like expect me to use the elevator, that was kind of weird. But anyways, so the truck is smoking. And I don't know, like, I don't know. That whole mall experience was just weird, like, and, kids, like, they get all of the information on their phone, so they're always looking down at their phone, and they never look up, they never look at the mall map, in the center of the mall. They never, and they thought it was weird that I was looking at it, and they never look at the menu when they order food. And when I was waiting, I thought, oh, these restaurants look cool, let me just like look around and read the menus and the prices and stuff. And so I was just looking. Wow, maybe it wasn't the truck, maybe it was somebody else, but somebody's smoking. Anyways, and so it was like everybody has their head tucked down looking at their phone, and I look up at the menu, and I'm holding this bright red Dasher bag. So like I walk in on the scene, and everyone, looks at me in their peripheral vision or off to the side or something, because nobody will look at you directly these days. It's fine, whatever. I don't mind that. I just hate it if I look at somebody directly, then they get pissed off. Like if I'm walking towards somebody and I accidentally look at them to assess where I need to walk, then they'll get like offended or whatever, because you're supposed to just, know everything before you do it type situation. And I'm in a new environment, I'm in a mall I've never been in before, and this is like a place that they've been a million times. They know where to walk and how to keep their head down and look at their phone and not have to look up. So anyways, so I walk in and everybody notices me, and I go over to get the DoorDash, and they're all kind of like acting like I'm being weird or something. And then I'm standing there waiting on the DoorDash, and he's like, it'll be 2 minutes. But it was kind of hard to understand what he was saying, so I thought he was asking for the name, and I just kept telling him the name. And he was like, no, 2 minutes, and he showed me his hand, 2 minutes. I was like, oh, 2 minutes. And then once we got like that clarified, I was like, okay, and I stepped away from the counter. And as I did, this boomer stepped up towards me to try to like run into me. You know how they do, so you have to be like really quick around them. I'm like, whatever, typical boomer behavior. So I'm standing there, I look at my phone, and everything kind of goes back to normal. You know, everybody's looking at their phones or whatever. And then I look up at the menu, and 2 or 3 people look up at me. Like, what the fuck? Like I might as well have like pulled a gun out of my pants or a knife or something, you know, like. And so I'm just like thinking like that's, you know, weird. I'm just like looking at the menu, like, and then I look over to my right and I see there's like a candy store and stuff. So I'm looking at the prices and everyone's like staring at me like, why is this dude just like staring at that thing, you know? It's like, because if they wanted to know the candy prices of that store, they would have Googled it before they even got to the car and went there, right? So they're like, why are you standing there just like looking at stuff? It's like, I'm waiting on this order, you know? Oh, you should be on your phone. Like, why are you know, like looking around the room or whatever? It's like, because this is a place that we exist in a space and time that has advertisement and signs and things designed for you to look at them. That's like the whole experience of the mall. Like, can I just not enjoy myself for 2 seconds? Why do you have to judge me for like, you know, looking in the candy store or whatever, you know? And then so they're all, you know, they're still like wigging out over like nothing. And then so I'm just like, ugh, you know, so I pull my phone out, and I'm looking at my phone, and I run out of things to do on my phone, so I'm like, I look on the left side, so I start looking on the left, and the people over there start looking really concerned, and I couldn't see the full name of one of the signs, and I thought to myself, I wonder what they'll do if I step towards them, like, not even within their personal space, obviously, like, they were probably 15 to 20 feet away from me, like, 2 or 3 empty tables between us, and, I'm nowhere close to them, right, and, anyway, so I'm looking over their heads, basically, like, across the food court at this restaurant, the name of this restaurant, and their prices and stuff, because that's what people used to do. They used to look around the food court and go, oh, they've got such and such, I want to go get that, you know? But nowadays, everybody looks on their phones, so, like, nobody looks at the signs and stuff, so it's, like, weird. That's something I've noticed, like, even the workers and stuff will be weird about it sometimes. Like, I went into a fast food place one time, and, that menus will change, like, so they'll have one advertisement, and then it'll change to another advertisement, and then another one, so it'll always be like the deals, you know, and the workers that are young like that, they're usually really stupid, and like they don't know how to do the bare minimum of their job, and so there'll be like a deal on something, and they won't know it, and they're like, that's part of their job, they're supposed to know, you know, and so you'll be like, okay, I want to order the such and such, but you don't say it like exactly how it's marketed, you know, like if I go to Wendy's and say, oh, I want to get the Cinnabon, then they'll be like, they have literally on their whole menu, they have one item, the Cinnabon pull-apart cinnamon roll with cream cheese, and you have to say, you have to get the cream cheese removed if you don't want it, because it comes with it, okay? So I'll go up to the counter and say, like, I want a Cinnabon, and they're like, she's like, a what? And I'm like, the pull-apart Cinnabon roll. She goes, oh, the pull-apart Cinnabon roll. It's like, that's just how literal they think, and I don't know why. Like, you have to say it exactly. And I've had that problem happen multiple times, and it's like, oh my god, you know what I'm talking about. But Yeah, one time I went into Burger King, I think it was, and I was waiting on the ad to roll over so I could see exactly what it was, because I knew if I was like, oh, I'm trying to get the Impossible Burger, then they would say, oh, we don't have that. I'm like, oh, I'm trying to get the Impossible Whopper. You know, like they have different names for the same thing, and they'll change it up. They'll do like the Impossible King, and then they'll do the Impossible Whopper again, and I think the only difference is like one has mayonnaise and the other one doesn't, or something. I don't know. Anyways, so then, yeah, I went into this Burger King, and this girl was just like being super confrontational. Like, I don't know why. Like, I don't know if she was just mad that like I didn't order online and now she has to like take my order or something. I don't know, but I wanted to pay with cash, so I couldn't order online. So I walk up to the counter, and I was waiting on, like I said, I was waiting on the ad to come back, and I'm looking above her head, and the whole time she's looking at me like I'm stupid, like, and like looking around like she doesn't know what the fuck I'm looking at or what the fuck I'm doing. And I was like, so I explained it to her. I was like, oh, I was looking for that ad that has the deal on the Impossible Whopper. And she's like, we don't have a deal on the Impossible Whopper. Like, from the very beginning, being confrontational and also just not knowledgeable at all about what's going on. I'm like, okay. And then it pops up. I'm like, that one, I want to get that. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's the deal on the Impossible Whopper meal. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to get. And she's like, okay. And then I don't know, it's just weird that like she thought it was weird I was looking up at the sign, because like I said, most people would just get the information off of their phone. Another encounter I had, I went in to buy some cones from a place, and as soon as I walk in, the employee was just confrontational as well. She was like walking towards me pretty aggressively, but I was just like looking around the store trying to locate the cones. And you know, most people will say, hi, how can I help you? How are you doing? What are you looking for? Something along those lines. You know, even if they think I'm underage, they'll usually like greet me first, and then they'll say, before they do the purchase, they'll say, you got your ID on you? You look kind of young, you know, something along those lines. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's no reason to be passive aggressive about it, but whatever. No, she was just aggressive about it out the gate. Yeah, so I walk in, and she's walking towards me like pretty fast and pretty aggressively, and she didn't say anything at all, and she's just staring at me, and I'm like, do you guys have any cones? And she's like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to ask for your ID first. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And then she's like rolling her eyes and like huffing and puffing and looking back at her coworker like, can you believe this guy? As if it was like almost as if my response was, I don't have an ID. And you know, she's like, oh, you know what I mean? I'm just like, oh yeah, sure. And I go to hand it to her, and instead of being like, thanks, you know, or taking it, she's just, oh. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like sitting there waiting for her to take it. She finally takes it, and I'm standing there waiting for her to hand it back to me. She never does. I'm just like, okay. And then I'm like, so do you guys have any cones? And she goes, and it's still holding my ID at this point. So it's like, the only thing I'm asking for is information on if you have cones or not. I'm not asking you to sell them to me. I'm not, none of that. All I've asked is, do you have cones or not? You can say yes or no to that before you need to see my ID, okay? But now, you have seen my ID, but you're still holding it. There's really no reason to still be holding it, okay? If you need to scan it for when we do the sell, you should ask for it at the time of the sell. You don't need to withhold it the entire time. But I'm like, whatever, fine. So she's still standing there holding it, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So, but I have to ask her again, like, do you guys have any cones? She doesn't know. And instead of being like, you know, she knew that's what I wanted from the beginning. You know, so it's like, instead of being like, oh, no, we don't have them, or finding out if they have them, she just immediately wanted a reason to create a confrontation, was by asking me for the ID. And whenever I didn't give her confrontation, whenever I didn't say, oh, I don't have it on me or something like that, I was like cool about it. I was like, yeah, sure, here you go. That pissed her off because she wanted confrontation and I didn't give it to her. So, anyways, so I have to ask her a second time, do you guys have cones? She doesn't know. So she has to ask her coworker while she's still holding my ID. So it's like, now I'm being held hostage at this point. I really want to just walk away, but I can't because you have my ID. I don't know if this place sells cones or not. I really don't want to be here. I would rather drive 5 minutes up the road than continue to deal with this shit. I'm over it at this point. Like, mentally, emotionally, over it, you know? Dude, a dog just walked by. Oh, shit. I was gonna get treats out and it crossed the road. But there was 2 people trying to help it, so it's a little bit different than Memphis. It was a pretty dog. I hope somebody helps it. I bet they will. Cause like I said, within that like 10-second span that it was here, 2 people tried to help it, and it ran away from them. That's stressful. Anyways, so yeah, she's just being confrontational the whole time, and then so I'm like standing there waiting to get my ID back, and she's like asking her coworker, "Do we have them?" And her coworker's like, "Yeah, they're over there." She's like, "Okay, they're over here. Follow me." And I thought she was gonna hand it back. No, keeps it. So we walk around the store. We go over there, and I'm assessing like what they have, because every single time I walk into a store and I buy cones, it's always different. It's the same like 3 brands, but it's always different size packaging, different size cones, different number that comes in them, different prices. So I have to think about it, like, is this a good deal or not? Because obviously they want you to pay more than what you would have to. So if I know, like, oh wait, I've seen that in a store before for like $1 less, I don't want that, you know? So I'm like sitting there thinking about it, like my options and stuff, looking at it. This whole process probably takes less than a minute and a half for me to probably evaluate like a set of cones and like what I want. So yeah, but yeah, she was mad about that, and was like, I don't remember verbatim what she was saying, but she was like kind of what's it called when you like, I don't know, it's like this customer service passive aggressive thing where you're like wanting the customer to hurry up, so you just start asking them questions. But she was doing it in a way that was like intentionally, like she could tell I was trying to like figure out what I wanted to get, and like shoot, I don't know, you know, like when someone's counting and you start counting in different numbers, that way it fucks them up. It was kind of like what it felt very intentional. It didn't feel like she was trying to be helpful. Like it felt like she was trying to fuck with me. Anyways, so I was like, okay, whatever, you know. So I picked out what I wanted, and then we go over to the register. She rings me up, And she's like, is there anything else? And I'm like, no, that'll be it. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm still expecting my ID back, right? And she's like, okay, is it gonna be cash or card? And I'm like, oh, I got tap to pay. And she's like, okay, are you part of our rewards program? And the thing is, it's like with these tobacco stores, there's like different ones that are like together. So like Abbey Road and Wonderland, those are both under the same rewards points. And there's some other stores that also fall under that. So every time I go into a tobacco store and they have that same rewards points, I ask them like, oh, is it a part of the Abbey Road rewards points? And usually they're like, oh no, we're not, I don't know anything about that. Or they're like, yeah, we are, it's the same, so I don't have to like re-enroll, you know what I mean? And because you have to give a phone number and an email address and all that stuff. So she's like, are you part of the rewards program? I'm like, oh, I don't know, is it the one that's a part of like Abbey Road and them? And instead of just being like, no, or something like that, she just starts acting like I'm stupid, like I don't know what I'm talking about. She's like, like I said, I don't know verbatim, but yeah, she's being very condescending about it. I'm like, okay, I guess not. And she's like, do you want to sign up for the program? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And she's like, okay, what's your first name? So I tell her. Now, it's not a first name that you need to ask. Is this how you spell it? You know, it's kind of like if someone's like, oh, my first name is Bob. It's spelled B-O-B, right? I mean, unless I'm doing like your medical records, there's no reason to ask. Of course, that's how it's spelled, you know? So she's like, what's your first name? And I tell her, and she's like, instead of just shouting it, you know, instead of just being like, that's spelled B-O-B, right? You know, she's like, how do you spell that? Instead of just spell it out for her. I'm like, why is she wasting time still? And then she's like, what's your last name? So I tell her and I spell it. And she's like rolling her eyes as if me spelling it was condescending or something. And then she spelled my last name back to me. Again, I'm like, this is not that official. And then she's like, okay, well, I gotta let you know, our rewards points program is if you buy, and it's the same scale that every other tobacco store that has the rewards points program uses. And it's like for every, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's something like it's a formula for like every amount of points is like each level, basically. So it's like you spend $10, you get 1,000 points, but if you spend $20, you don't get 2,000 points, you get like 3,000 points. It's something along those lines. And then your points are worth a certain amount of money, so that was wrong. I don't remember how much, like, if you spend $10, maybe you get, like, a certain amount of points. But it's all the same system, and they also have a sign for it. And so she's explaining, like, every, like, level of it, you know, like, as if I was a third grader learning math for the first time in my life. And then I'm just like, okay, and there's like 6 levels to it, so I'm just like, oh my god, she's still going on, you know. Instead, she never cut it off and was like, you know, and so on and so forth. She just kept going and going and going. And I'm sitting there looking at the sign, and she's looking at me like I'm crazy for looking at the sign. And then while she's like talking to me, I was still listening to her, obviously. I was looking at another sign that they had, because they had advertisement on the front of their little stand there, and she's still looking at me like as if I'm like doing something she doesn't understand. Because if I'm not looking at my phone or I'm looking at her, why else would I be looking, right? Like, and that's how the whole generation works. It's like, why are you looking at that sign? Or like, they'll even do it while you're driving. There'll be times when there'll be somebody driving and they're in a position where I have to watch them because like they're turning close to me, or they're turning onto the same street that I'm already on, or I'm waiting for them to pass, or whatever it may be. And I'll be watching them to watch them pass, so as soon as they pass, I can move out, I can turn, or I can do whatever I need to do. That's the only reason I'm looking at them. And they'll see me looking at them, and they'll look at me like, what the fuck you looking at? Or like embarrassed. Half of them will be embarrassed. I'm just like, grow up, you know? Driving in this city is the hardest part. I don't know why, but like, it is amateurs, is what it is. Getting a bike is going to be a lot easier. I think there's a lot more traffic right now because people are trying to get home from the eclipse. The eclipse happened like 2 hours ago, so I'm sure the people that are like, the ones that are like, we have to be the first ones out, you know, they're going to try to compete to be the first ones out, and they cause all this congestion. The people who are smart are the ones that are still asleep and or starting to drink at this point, and they're going to leave tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So, yeah. Anyways.